Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished guests, welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Emma, and together with my colleagues Tamara and Petra, we are here today to show you why it is imperative that we obtain a commitment for continued funding for operational requirements in the northeastern region of Angalci. We trust this presentation will provide you with a clear picture of the need that exists within the region and the crucial reasons we need your support moving forward. Climate change is a growing concern. We hear the word regularly now, but do we really think of the implications of not acting? There is no better time to invest in climate change resilience than right now. The urgency is further highlighted by the UN Secretary General's recent statement on climate change. Climate threats are growing, and the world needs to deliver on an inclusive approach to adapting to climate change. We keep this need to act right now in the forefronts of our minds, and our vision and objectives align with this need. Our proposal sets to outline the current situation in Angalci, the summary of the progress that the Saves Lives team has already achieved in the northeastern region. A situation analysis has been conducted where constraints, needs, and recovery objectives have been identified, and these key topics will be explored throughout this presentation. Save Lives works across the world to save lives and defeat poverty. Our vision is an inclusive world for people to reach their full potential with dignity, security, and respect. Save Lives provides coordinated, targeted, and place-based support to the most vulnerable demographics, including pregnant and lactating mothers and children, to ensure fair representation and progression of equal human rights. At Save Lives, we believe in the importance of supporting and leading the growth in community, capacity, and capability by ensuring that supports offered are culturally appropriate with the goal of long-term integration into society. By providing this education and support, we intend to equip community members with the required skill set to have a prosperous future independent of long-term humanitarian aid. We do this by working collaboratively with government and non-government organisations, as well as community members in a grassroots approach. Our vision is to empower the local women of Angalci to reduce gender inequality and ensure an inclusive disaster recovery and resilience strategy. With 20 years' experience in providing assistance to the most vulnerable people in the Horn of Africa, Save Lives is familiar with the socio-political situation in Angalci and has already established long-term relationships with the implementation partners. In 2020, Save Lives has stepped up to address the worsening situation in Angalci and ensured vital humanitarian relief continued to be efficient, coordinated, and targeted to the most vulnerable groups, in particular pregnant and lactating mothers and children. During the recent drought, we succeeded to prevent widespread malnutrition and contributed to community-led initiatives such as educating pregnant and lactating mothers and overall capacity building for local women. The Save Lives team have evidenced success in providing an effective contribution to community-led initiatives and overall capacity building within the region. Following years of crippling drought, I am very happy to advise you that food security in the northeastern region of Angalci is improving. This is due to the emergency relief interventions and the recent rains. Most households are now able to meet essential food and non-food needs. Around 20% of people are considered having adequate food for themselves and their livestock, however unable to afford essential non-food expenditure. Whilst this situation is a very welcome improvement, due to the climate change, drought is likely to increase within the Horn of Africa and disproportionately affect rural women. So now is the time that we need to ensure that long-term community resilience strategies are enacted. Save Lives will continue to work with many different government and non-government organisations to ensure an integrated response and service delivery of aid is provided in the most efficient manner conducive with community growth. The direct beneficiaries of the work in the region include Angalsi rural women and girls, Angalsi farming families and communities, and indirectly the project will benefit the Angalsi economy as a whole and create stability and security for the whole region. Throughout our continued operations in Angalsi, we have been able to identify several constraints. By taking a proactive response and identifying the constraints, we are able to work within the constraints that can't be altered, whilst concurrently contributing to the betterment of community by identifying and seeking to change the constraints that we can. We have identified that funding and staff capacity are constraints we seek to overcome by gaining donor funding from this proposal. We are also doing work within community to change perspectives and alleviate cultural barriers and gender bias by prioritising gender issues and enabling wider community education to close this gap. Power dynamics within the region have been established over many years, and we intend to continue to work with community to change this over time. We have also identified risks associated with women empowerment programs, as it could lead to the backlash of women for continuing patriarchal society. Verkalo highlighted that the development interventions often misunderstand gender roles in households, which could lead to these programs not only failing to meet its original objective, but increase the burden on women and further weaken the access to resources, labour rights and bargaining position. Save Lives will work to ensure that this sensitivity is managed by emphasising in communication that the objective is to achieve gender equality in order to benefit the community as a whole. Whilst it is acknowledged that the control of climate variabilities is outside the scope of our work, we intend to adopt a community-led approach to education and support around drought-resistant cropping and other forms of agriculture. This approach will ensure contingencies are in place to deal with future rainfall deficiencies. It is envisaged that with the education and support delivered as part of this project, community resilience to future shocks will increase and the improved food security conditions can be maintained. The focus of this project is on addressing long-term needs. The long-term humanitarian needs of women and children in Angalsi are forefront of our mind. This includes ensuring the continuation of improvement strategies currently utilised in governance structures, infrastructure and agriculture to enable long-term recovery and resilience to future shocks. The concept of empowerment of women refers to increasing women's decision-making power, collective power, and personal power. In order to empower Angalsi women, policies and programs must recognise, anticipate, and be tailored to women's unique experiences. Empowering women brings positive benefits to wider community. The impact of climate change amplifies the existing gender inequalities, particularly in rural areas. Climate change affects men and women differently in terms of agriculture production, food security, health, resources, natural disasters, and migration. It is a trend for international and government agencies to focus on immediate needs in a crisis, but the longer-term focus of community recovery and resilience often becomes the secondary focus. This project sets to buck that trend and focus on the long-term needs of northeastern Angalsi to build future capacity, capability, and increase resilience within the region. We propose that funding be provided to implement a permanent civil society organisation based in Angalsi. Civil society organisations, referred to as CSOs, will coordinate long-term efforts in recovery and climate change resilience. It will advocate for the empowerment of local women and gender equality. A CSO is best placed to work in a trusted partnership with Angalsi government, communities and its network of partners to support a locally led and gender approach to climate change resilience. The CSO approach will align with international charters and frameworks to ensure cohesive community values are not compromised and democratic governance continues. The CSO will help to ensure the inclusion of women in existing local decision making committees in agriculture and strengthen these agriculture committees to operate as local peace committees. These strengthened local agriculture committees will help to build a resilient agriculture sector, which will positively impact security and prosperity in Angalci. The agriculture committees will provide direction, education, and advice on best practice agriculture and resource management to their respective farming communities. This approach complements with existing government agriculture programs that subsidise fertiliser and high quality drought resilient seed. The CSO will ensure that agriculture committees include female headed farm households in their support and education, in particular in the regions that continue to experience stressed conditions. Save Lives will also support the CSO on the inclusion of local women into key leadership roles by implementing education and mentorship programs, which will improve their influence and negotiation skills. According to Verico, the ability to negotiate between women and men recognises complex gender relations and wider systematic barriers and are critical to achieving meaningful development outcomes. This will help to ensure the inclusion and participation of women in recovery and resilience efforts continue in the long term. Save Lives will establish partnerships between the CSO, FAO, and local universities to help design curriculums that are able to build capacity for climate change resilience and disaster recovery for the future. Stronger partnerships with research organisations and better information sharing among the network of organisations working in the climate change space will ensure improved quality of policies and programs. Save Lives also proposes that funding be invested in research in management of crops, pests and disease to inform climate change resilience in the agricultural sector. In particular, innovations into integrated pest management strategies and ecosystem-based farming management practices would benefit farming communities in the region. The latest research finding can feed into education that the local agriculture committees can provide to community. Studies have been shown that when farmers receive education, they are more likely to adopt new technologies and be innovative in their agriculture practices, in particularly women. The CSO will work with Save Lives Networks partners to ensure gender considerations in policy advice to the Angalci government in healthcare. Save Lives proposes for mid-term funding to allow locally deployed Save Lives maternal health nurses to work with local healthcare workers to build skills and capacity within the region, with particular focus on addressing the needs of pregnant and lactating mothers and children. The CSO will also advise and advocate on the adequate and appropriate funding investments in healthcare from the Angalci government. As evidenced throughout this proposal, we intend to build resilience and community capability by ensuring community-led initiatives are successful within the region. By committing funding to this proposal, you have the chance to be a part of something that is truly life-changing for this region. With the successful application of donor funding and effective allocation of resources, the integration of our new CSO, the Local Agriculture Committee, and capability and capacity building initiatives in healthcare, university, and local leadership will enable the Angalci region to be more prepared for future shocks and have an enduring impact on community resilience in northeastern Angalci. Our detailed donor funding proposal has been submitted for your consideration. However, if you have any further questions, concerns, or would like to obtain a budget for further consideration, please do not hesitate to contact one of the members of our project collaboration team. Thank you for joining us today.